complaining to the Plymouth leadership that their new friend had ruthless ambitions. They alleged Squanto was demanding tributes from followers, bribing allies with gifts, and intimidating those who resisted him with threats that he could unleash the plague. The settlers were shocked. They began to see, Governor William Bradford wrote, that Squanto sought his own ends and played his own game. Thus by degrees we began to discover Tisquantum, wrote the colonist Edward Winslow, disappointed that his trusted guide wanted only to make himself great in the eyes of his countrymen. Upon learning of this scheming, the Massasoit demanded the colonists execute Tisquantum. But the settlers were fond of the man. Despite their misgivings about his behavior, they ended up sheltering him. As months passed, tensions between the Massasoit and Squanto gradually eased, and the great sachem relented in his calls for the translator's head. In November 1622, with this controversy seemingly behind him, the translator led the English on a trading mission that brought them to Monomoit, the place on Cape Cod later named Chatham, Massachusetts. It was there that he came down with his ominous sickness. In his final feverish days, Tisquantum beckoned Bradford to his bedside. The dying man asked the governor to pray for him that he might go to the Englishman's God in heaven. This confession of faith came as a surprise to the colonists. In their surviving writings, none mentioned him having any particular interest in Christianity before his death, though in his years abroad, Tisquantum had been inside churches and cathedrals, heard his share of sermons, probably learned to sing a few psalms, and perhaps been baptized by a Spanish priest. Yet his claim that he wanted to spend eternity with the English God seemed to indicate a drastic change in a man who had been plotting to become a powerful indigenous leader just months earlier. Squanto took so many mysteries with him to his grave, the first being the exact cause of his death. Given the vagueness and suddenness of his symptoms, some historians have wondered, without any direct evidence, if he was poisoned. And that's hardly the only missing piece of the puzzle. What happened to him during those years of captivity overseas? How did he manage to return home when the other men taken with him had not? Why was he so willing to help the English after being captured by an Englishman? Clearly he sought his own ends, but what exactly were those ends? What compelled him to make a deathbed conversion? Is it even possible to collect all the scraps of evidence now, 400 years later, to come up with plausible answers to these questions? The following chapters are just such an attempt. Using a broad range of evidence, I reconstruct an extraordinary life that ended right when many Americans think their story begins. Squanto's legend is better known than his life. In American popular memory, he belongs to the same rarefied pantheon as Pocahontas, Sacagawea, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Geronimo, those famed natives remembered as loyal helpmates or worthy opponents in the annals of the frontier. But whereas books about the Mayflower and its passengers could fill many shelves, there is none exclusively about Tisquantum, for adults, that is. He has been the central character in over a dozen children's books and a supporting player in cartoons, television miniseries, and untold numbers of Thanksgiving school plays. He was even the subject of a live-action Hollywood film with a $20 million budget, Squanto, A Warrior's Tale, which Walt Disney Pictures released to mostly empty theaters in October 1994. Though schoolroom versions of his story sometimes differ in details, they share the same flaws. Most depict Squanto as a convenient figure whose main purpose was fulfilling the colonists' destiny. Even those that try to center his goals and feelings tend to omit the final year of his life when he was disgraced and died. Outside of children's entertainment, plenty of writers have treated him with care in serious books about Plymouth Colony. Tisquantum reliably features in academic tomes, best-selling pop histories, and textbooks. The parts of his life that I expand on in this book, his time overseas and the events leading up to his death, are hard